Hi, this is Rich Lavens of Eurotherm by Watlow, and been asked a couple times recently, like, what are the big differences between the Watlow Composer configuration software and the Eurotherm iTools Engineering Studio configuration software? And really, they sort of do the same thing, and they're very, very similar, but yet different. So I'm going to start on the Watlow Composer side. I've got a PM9 Plus hooked live to this. And if I click in this tab, once it's connected, I can look at my device details. I can look at the function block diagram. I can do some settings here with colors and whatnot. And then finally, I have a parameter explorer, which they just call Explorer. So I can go in and look at anything here. It's similar but different on the Eurotherm side. So on the Eurotherm side, I guess I haven't hooked this up, so I'm going to scan for the device. It should just take a moment. So on the Watlow side, I'm connected to the PM9 with a Bluetooth. On the Eurotherm side, I'm using one of our configuration cables. In either case, if you order them with Ethernet, you could do the same thing over Ethernet. So over here, I have Parameter Explorer. Again, I can pick different folders here. So if I want to go to AI, it opens up parameters having to do with the analog input, which is the equivalent of here, their Explorer, and here's the analog input. So I can do it two different ways. This is strictly preference, but I wanted to show you more of the function block diagram. So I'm going to go to function block diagram in the Watlow world, which is equivalent over here to the graphical wiring on the Eurotherm side. Let that finish up. So Watlow does a nice job over here of they've got a lot of their features and functions and different blocks kind of already laid out within the graphical template, I guess you'd say. And I'm holding the left control button on my keyboard and using the mouse wheel so I can zoom in and out on the Watlow side with that. So universal input on the Watlow side, let's set that block up. So if I click on the block, you notice over here to the right, it opens up the parameters within the block. So thermocouple, your type of thermocouple. You can have precision display. This is a difference in terminology. That is where you set up the decimal point in the Watlow world. Calibration offset is how you would calibrate the instrument, putting a high or low in there. And down here, there's a nice little help menu. It's really close on the Eurotherm side, though, so we're going to come back to graphical wiring. Over here, I'm going to drag an analog input block into my screen, and it's going to ask me, do you want to be in configuration mode? So this is a difference between the two platforms. Watlow, as you're making changes to the graphical wiring and settings, it's automatically sending those changes to the controller. In the Eurotherm world, we have to give it permission. So we're going to say yes. Up here, you'll see my access button has turned to yellow with a black wrench. On the Watlow, excuse me, on the Watlow side, when you click on a block, you see the parameters. On the Eurotherm side, you have to double click in the gray header. And then you get very similar, very similar parameters. Again, maybe a little bit of difference in terminology. So here's our process value offset. And over here, decimal point. Over here, again, it's still there. It's just a little bit different terminology. So if I wanted to take this block and hook it to another block in the Watlow world, I would left click on this little rectangle, left click and hold, and I can drag that wherever I want. I'm going to drag it to the process one input. Now, in the Watlow world, the process one and the heat control loop are kind of already connected. If you don't want to use this block, you would just shut the function off over here, which is what I'm going to do. So we're going to go to the loop. So here's our loop. And again, over here, I can have heat. I can have heat cool. We're just going to leave this heat for now. Down here a little further is our proportional band, our integral, and our derivative. And then you have some set point limits here as well. On the Eurotherm side, back to graphical wiring, I'm going to drag a loop block out. Eurotherm does have a linearization block. You don't need to use it, but just to keep things apples for apples, I'm going to drag that out so we kind of look the same. In the Eurotherm world, instead of a left click and drag, you hover over the parameter you want to grab first, so it kind of turns that pink. Left click once, let go, and then you can hook it the same way by hovering over the parameter you want. When it turns that pink, click it. Here's our output from the linearization block to the PV. Now you'll notice in the Eurotherm world, this is all sort of configured. Anything that's in a green dotted line has not been saved yet. So up here, download wiring to instrument is how we send that down to the controller. On the Watlow side, again, that's a live thing. So we're going to save that. And while that's saving, we're going to go to the Watlow side. So here's our heat output. Again, left click and drag. I want to connect that to, in my case, an output. And when I click on the output block, I have some setups. So again, I can do millivolts or volts. In my case, I want 4 to 20 to represent 0 to 100% output. The minute I make the changes, that controller sees that already. On the Eurotherm side, we're going to grab the same block. Again, I know where these are. So we just, again, by hitting the plus or minus, we can expand folders. In my case, I've already pre-populated this, so I know that IO4 is a milliamp. Click on my channel 1 heat, connect it to my process input, very similar to the Watlow. And then when I click on the gray header, there's the same thing. 4 to 20 equals 0 to 100. And then save that. While that's saving, we're going to add an alarm to the Watlow side. So I've got this output block that's pre-populated. If I search through here, which I've already done, you do not find an alarm block. But over here on the right, there's a library of other things that I can do. So I can simply drag in an alarm block. If I double click on the block, we'll just make this a process high. Again, I need to reference that to my sensor, so left click and drag. And then the output, when my alarm goes active, left click and drag, I want to fire that relay. Again, that's making changes live. On the Eurotherm side, it's pretty much the same thing. So here, I know this is my relay output. Down here's an alarm block. I reference my process value, draw a line to my input. Move that around a little bit. Grab my output and draw another line to my relay. The only difference is I'm saving it here. On the Watlow side, it's automatically saved. Let that finish up. So again, pretty quick overview of some of the differences. We have several tech support people on both sides, the Eurotherm and the Watlow side, that should you have further questions or need additional clarification, please get a hold of us. One last thing, though, is how do I save this? So in the Eurotherm world, if I need to save a configuration, I would come up here to the file or the save button, either way. So we'll hit the save button. And over here, it says I want to give this a file name. So we're just going to save it on my desktop as Laven's example. And we'll save that. So it's saving it here on the Watlow side. While this is going, we'll do the same thing on the Watlow side. So over here on the System tab, we can save an image. So save image as, and again, same thing pops up. We'll put Lavid's example. Start my desktop and save it. So this is saving. On my side, we should be about done. So getting close. To load this though, so I have now saved that configuration. I get my next instrument in. I can come up here to load. It's going to say it's going to close the graphical wiring. So here's that same one. I can pick my file and open it, and it will go ahead and ask me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Yes. In this case, I'm just overwriting what I had already done. It's very similar on the Watlow side. This is still saving. So one of the differences between the iTools and the Composer is there's I save my image. So I guess just showing you how to load it so I can come back to my system. I can import an image, my desktop, and again, there's my Lavid's example. So I'm not going to load it, but that's how you would take one file that's saved and load it into an instrument. One of the differences I was alluding to is on the Watlow side, if I can look at a saved image on the Watlow side, but I cannot make any changes. So you would need to have the instrument on hand to be able to make and save configuration changes. So if a customer sent me something on the Watlow side, I can look to see what he's done, but I can't make any changes to it without having a live instrument. On the Eurotherm side, I can. So I can save an image, I can upload that image, make changes, and save it without having a live instrument. I'm not saying one's any better than the other, just pointing out a difference. I think that pretty much wraps this up. I hope, again, you find this helpful, but if there's any questions, please drop us an email or give us a call. Thank you for your time.